Alright, so we're going to be learning today how to take a picture with an exposure problem and restore it to the original picture that you meant it to be. The first thing I would like you to do is switch to your selection brush. Make sure that you're not in mask mode. Make sure that you're in selection mode. Make sure the hardness of your brush is set to 100%. Make the size of your tool about the size of her head. It doesn't have to be exactly what mine is. Mine's currently set to 600 pixels. But make the size of your tool about 600, about the size of her head. Okay. We're going to do kind of a bad selection job here. We want to do a bad selection job. It's important to the purpose of this project. So watch what I do. Grab that side. I grab that side. Do you see how I've gone a little bit out past her? I want all of you to do the exact same thing. That shouldn't take you more than about 4 or 5 seconds. Okay, I'm going to suppose that we are done with that selection now. You're going to go up to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste. If your Layers palette is not open, go down to the bottom right-hand side, choose the Layers tab, open it up so that you can see your layers. Now, you should notice there is a layer of just her. Above that layer, you're going to see where it says Normal. Click on the drop-down menu where it says Normal. These are what you call blending mode options. Next week you're going to learn more about blending mode options. Today I'm going to teach you one blending mode option, and that is the screen. I want everyone to go ahead and choose screen. Notice the subject of our picture is now showing up much better. But now we have this strange kind of glow around her and this line that's out here in the middle of our picture. And that looks bad. Some of you might think, well, we should have just done a really good job of selecting her in the first place. But if we had done a really good job of selecting her in the first place, that line would actually be on her and we would have no way to hide it. So we wanted to do a bad job of selecting, creating this kind of glow around her so that we can then hide this line using the lines in her. So I want everyone to switch to their eraser tool. With your eraser tool, you're going to want to make sure it's one of the blurry brushes. That means it has a softer edge, meaning the center of the brush will be much stronger in its effect than the outside edges of the brush. Any of the blurry brushes is going to work. The difference in the different blurry brushes is the size. And we know we can change the size of our brush just using the size slider or the left and right bracket keys. Make sure your opacity is set to 100%. And then I want you to watch up front. I don't want anybody to do this. I want everybody to watch up front. If you'll notice, and I'm going to switch to my selection move tool just to point some things out. You'll notice that there's this, her arm and her shoulder create a natural line in the picture. You'll notice that her hair, see there's a dark line in her hair? That dark line curves. Do you see that curve? That dark line goes up kind of in a straight angle here. And then it comes down at the top into this V. And then there's a dark line in her hair. We're going to be using that dark line down here underneath of her hair and between her shoulder and her hair. You're going to have to make your tool smaller when you're ready to go in there and work. But then the other arm and shoulder, create the other line. We're going to be erasing this line to the natural lines in her. So I'm going to switch back to my eraser tool. And I just want you to watch what I do. Don't erase past the dark line. If you do, she gets dark again. I'm going to simply erase, just going to hang out there and kind of color and slowly but surely erase it to that point. So I'm going to go into that curve in her hair, but don't go past her hair. Just going to erase to that line, that dark line in her hair. Going to erase down along her shoulder, all the way up to her shoulder, but don't touch her shoulder. You need to erase right up to the shoulder and the arm, but don't go past the shoulder and the arm. Don't get on top of it. Notice, I'm going to have to make my tool smaller now so I can get into this area. I might as well go ahead and do this area as well. So your job is to go ahead and go through that and erase the line, erase the halo. But don't go past the dark lines that are already naturally in her hair. Let's go ahead and make that happen now, please. And honestly, that shouldn't take you too much more than about a minute or so. Just be careful you don't go past the dark line. And be careful that you actually erase all that needs to be erased. I like to go over things a couple of times just to make sure there's nothing left behind. Okay, if you'll notice up front, I don't want you to do this, I just want you to watch up front. You see the little eyeball on each of your layers? If you click that eyeball, you can hide the layer. Just watch me up front. I'm going to hide that layer. That's what she originally looked like. I'm going to bring that layer back. We've definitely made an improvement here. Right-click on layer 1. Right-click on layer 1. And you're going to choose Duplicate Layer. It's going to ask you to name that layer. I almost never do, so if you want to name it, you can. I usually don't, and I just click on OK. Notice in your layers palette, we now have 2 screened layers of her. If you're looking now at her and you're still seeing a glow, then now you have 2 layers that you're going to have to erase. If you're looking at her and you see an area where you've gone too far and she's now turned dark in a spot, a lot of times students mess up on her shoulders. They go too far and they erase parts of her shoulders and it looks dark now. If that's the case, you're going to have to get rid of these 2 layers and start that over again. But it was a quick process. It didn't take long. For right now, I want to pretend that all of us are done and we've done a good job. I'll give you time at the end to go back and fix anything that might need fixed. But I notice, should we do a 3rd screened layer on her? Sometimes, depending on the picture, that would be an okay option. But in the past, I've noticed if we do that on her, if we do a 3rd screen layer, she starts to turn like pinkish, reddish, blotchy. And so that's not going to be what we want to do for this particular project. Remember, there are other ways of pulling out an exposure problem and making the picture better. But at our very basic level, we've done a pretty good job of making the subject of our picture better. But I notice in the background, our background still has poor lighting. So I want everyone to click on the background layer. Now we're going to make some adjustments to the background layer. If you'll look in your layers palette, at the top of it you have some choices. Right above where it said normal, there's a little circle. Half of it's blue, half of it's white. I want you to go ahead and click on that circle. That's going to give you the Create Adjustment Layer options. You have several different adjustment layer options that you can create. For this particular project, you're going to want to choose the hue saturation. Now, we don't want to change the color of this picture. The yellowish orange in the leaves is what the photographer meant to capture. The green in the grass is what the photographer meant to capture. So we don't want to change the hue. It looks kind of dark. It'd be nice if we could just lighten it, but we don't want to do that. If you'll watch what happens, that really changes the picture to something that's not good quality. So it's not the lightness and darkness that we want to change. I'm going to take that back to 0. What we want to do is make the colors that are naturally in the picture, we want to make them pop. And you do that by increasing the saturation. I'm going to take my saturation somewhere between 28 to 30 for this, 28 to 34 maybe. If you go too high, it doesn't look right, it doesn't look natural anymore. You're going to want to be, for this particular project, somewhere between 28 and 34, I'd say. I'll just go a happy medium 32, 33. When you get what you're happy with, you're going to go ahead and just click the X on that little window. Notice that if you ever need to make changes to that window, all you have to do is double click on that layer and the window reappears for you. Now, watch up front again. I'm going to hide that adjustment layer, and I want you to notice what the picture used to look like. Kind of drab, kind of dreary, kind of grayish. And then I'm going to reveal that adjustment layer again, and you see that the colors in the tree pop, the colors in the grass pops. You can even start to see that that horse in the background is a brown horse. We have successfully corrected the exposure problem in this picture and made it a picture that is something what the photographer originally intended on it being.